Hello out to all you wonderful people. This is Andre the Game Idea Guy. Thank you once again for lending me your time and your ear listening into another Gamer's Thoughts discussion. And this is actually more related to the podcast I ran last night or Saturday, if you're listening on YouTube, because I probably won't post it until Monday on YouTube. But I ran my Game I Did Foundry Talk episode, which is likely also to post Monday. So on Anchor anyway. So that's going to be a flip flop. So like a trade off between both mediums. But let me not get sidetracked away from my point. So I ran the podcast and we were just basically talking about, conceptualizing building a console. And my fiance was on, and she's not really a gamer. And for me, I've played video games all my life, so it's familiar to me, highly familiar to me. So I guess for me, her input gave me insight into a different perspective that I had never really considered. Like, she talked about how getting into the medium of gaming could be very intimidating. Because honestly, there's a lot of stuff out there. But and then I think about how that fits other mediums and other genres and stuff. And it's like, that's a thing I never really thought of. Because if I'm interested in something, I just start learning about it. But then again, I guess I could equate how she would feel about gaming towards how I feel about, when it comes down to game development. Because I've tinkered with so many different engines, but I've never really settled down and just cranked out a full project. I've always started stuff, but I've never really fully finished anything. And the one thing I was determined to fully finish was the Streets of Rage remake mod that I was working on, but that got trapped on a hard drive that I no longer am able to access anything on, so that got cut short. But I can, putting it in that lens, I'm I can understand why there are a lot of people who just have assumptions about gamers because they see the medium and even if they try to step into it, they see all of this stuff, this wide range of stuff that's just splayed out everywhere. And they don't have, unless they have a friend who's really patient, they don't have a guide to get into it. Now, for some people, they'll just go gung-ho, there's a bunch of options and choices. Yes, I'm going to dive right in. But then there's other people that see them where do I start? What would be for a beginner? What's the entry level stuff? And I hadn't really considered that because, again, I have always been a gamer. To me, gaming's just a part of my life. It's always been there. It's always been something I've had. And even though, yes, I do know, out of the billions of people that are on the face of this planet, gaming is still a niche hobby. It's a very lucrative industry, but it's still a niche hobby. And I'm sitting there it's something that just had occurred to me, but I had just never thought outside of that space. And I have often criticized people for not talking or not thinking outside of themselves. But I mean, while I did think outside of myself, I didn't think outside. I limited my mind to what I would think about when it came down to the scope of things I would talk about. I had basically limited myself to, I'm talking outside of what I would want, but only within the sphere of influence. And that was something that I guess I didn't really know that I needed to think about. Now, granted, it's not going to change up my content any, because I think for the most part I do a fairly baseline, I guess, description of things. But it could affect how I approach different ideas, which in the long run is probably going to be a positive. But I didn't think of why so many people would be against getting into gaming, not necessarily just being against gaming, but just not understanding where they can start and where they can fit themselves in. Just thinking about it makes me remember all of the stuff with a lot of people just criticizing gaming. And again, me being an avid gamer, having been into the medium all my life, and then hear people bad mouthing and bashing it from the outside that don't really understand the inner workings. Yeah, I kind of got agitated. And like, there were times I would try to see things from their perspective, but I also didn't think about how they could just feel highly intimidated, and that anxiety that they may have gets them to go off without considering that the person that they're talking to is just another person like themselves. No, like, it's more or less like hearing basically from someone say, well, you're a gamer, you're advanced, and you're into all this stuff, then you must think little of me, which, not the case. It's never the case. Or at least I'd hope it's never the case. I mean, there are some assholes in gaming too, but in the general run of things, most gamers just want to be able to share and enjoy the medium. Like, yeah, there are problems. We all know there are problems. And we're only way to fix those problems is to work on them. But there's a lot of intermittent fighting and things that go on with the different consoles and fanboys and stuff. So there's a lot to work through. But just hearing how she felt about, like, the medium in general, because she's interested in getting into it, but just doesn't really know where to start. It's one of those things, just like, I mean, I kind of knew before some of the things that she felt about it, but I didn't really know everything. And having that discussion, because we were basically, again, just coming up with ideas for a console, and the overall, we ended up coming up with a console that has a focus on user-generated content and customization, which I think is honestly something that would probably appeal to a lot of people. Maybe even outside of gaming. And I know the first thing someone's going to say, well, that's just PC. Yes and no. Now, just my quick side note. Now, if you were to go ahead and create your own operating system, and that operating system was streamlined for all of the hardware that you put out, that's still not necessarily PC. Even if you can swap out parts as needed. And you can just have specific parts that you can swap in and out, and have only those specific parts work with your hardware. For example. So it's not exactly PC, but it's highly customizable like PC, but with a lot less of the intimidation factor of trying to figure out how to do a fully customized operating system and all that. It's more simplified. But getting off that sidetrack, I just think that conversation actually helped me more see into the eyes of a non-gamer, like the way that I try to explain to make things easier for people to see how gamers think. And again, unfortunately, they're assholes in every different form of life. But I think that conversation did lean toward me being able to see and recognize maybe, hey, this person is just anxious. Maybe they don't really understand. Like maybe they're not understanding the medium, not because they don't want to, just that they haven't had anyone actually explain things. So I think that that's going to be my major approach, is more or less I try to explain things a little bit better. Hopefully it'll work. So I guess in short, I'm trying to say I'm mostly planning to better give examples of what I'm talking about for people to understand. And on top of that, I can't say I'm going to curtail fully to making my channel more non-gamer friendly. But I think with at least more awareness of how I explain things for people to, kind of get a concept on where I'm headed, I'll have to talk a little bit more in depth about certain stuff. So, I mean, in the long run, it might be the better thing to do. It's just something I had to consider and hadn't thought about. Figuring my channel's a gaming channel, people that aren't into gaming, or at least aren't interested in gaming, are probably not likely going to care much about it. But maybe there are some people that just aren't into gaming, but they're still interested in, like, maybe even just the stories and plot lines and stuff that, hey, it might just be entertaining for them. So, again, I'll just dig into it a little bit more. I think I'm rambling now. So, this is the point where I need to stop. But if anybody's got any suggestions on YouTube or on Anchor, feel free to go ahead and make them. I'm kind of open ears at this point to just kind of get a better understanding of the one, who's listening, and two, if there are maybe some tweaks I can make to make the content more understandable for people, help people grasp things easier. Because I'm definitely not changing my formatting. That's going to stay the same. Because I think that's what works for me, and I like doing things the way I do them. But if maybe I can just tweak things just a little bit, that might be something to consider. But I'm going to end it here. Thank you guys very much for listening in. Keep your eyes and ears out for more stuff from me. And until the next time, enjoy your games. Peace out, everybody.